So as we move into the mid 20th century, it's actually interesting to me that there is so much credence to what the behaviorists were saying, like all this environmental design stuff. It actually does work for productivity. Yet what we got was a bunch of time management consultant bullshit. So how did that happen?
Well, okay, let's put it a little bit in historical context here.
Okay.
So yeah, the early 20th century, you have the Freudians and the behaviorists battling it out. What changes though, as we start to get into the middle of the century, so starting the 40s, 50s, 60s, is there's a big shift in the economy, right? The post-war economy shifts much more towards kind of the knowledge work, the beginning of the knowledge work, especially getting into the 60s. Think of like Mad Men, the agencies, corporate drones, all of that starts. So people start going from the farms and the factories. We have been urbanizing for, several decades since the Industrial Revolution started in the 1800s, slowly urbanizing, and we're getting a new economy out of this. Knowledge work becomes a thing.
Yeah.
So the ad agencies, the designing products for consumer products for the masses, all of that starts to crop up, right? So if you think about that, that's a very different work environment, right? You go from a factory or a farm, you know exactly what you need to do. It's right in front of you. It's very tangible. If you're in a factory, especially too, somebody else is telling you exactly what to do. You don't have to think about it. Whereas if you're getting into more creative work in the new knowledge economy, now you have all of this, there's all these tasks that are nebulous kind of, and even the end goals a lot of times are nebulous. It's creative work. You're not really sure what you're producing. You're given a little bit more autonomy too in those spaces. And so now you have to manage your own time. Okay. Up until this point too, like I said, a lot of the things you were supposed to do had kind of been outlined for you. Somebody else told you what to do for the most part, for the average worker. Now you're managing your own time, and you need a way to organize all this and decide, what do I need to be working on right now? And so for a lot of the industry, I don't know if there were really gurus around this time, but this is kind of their predecessors. They thought, oh, well, these people just need to be taught how to organize their time, how to manage their time. So this is where kind of the time management philosophy really starts to take hold and rise to the collective conscious.
Yeah.
There's a lot of the like techniques that come out of this too, at least started here, even the ones we use today, Pomodoro techniques and time boxing and all that. And we can get into those here in a little bit, but that sets the stage anyway, the historical stage for the time management crowd.
Okay. So you had your bone to pick like 20 minutes ago.
Okay.
This section is going to be my bone to pick.
Yeah.
Because I just think most of this is nonsense.
I'll pile on with you, I think.
Okay.
For the most part. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I have a few observations here. First of all, this is a very subtle Plato back with a vengeance type situation, which is like, we have all these office workers, we have all these worker bees. They're at their desk, they're typing, they're doing things, but like the output is completely unpredictable and a lot of people are underperforming. What's the problem? Oh, they must not know the right things, right? And I find it so interesting that repeatedly throughout history, that is our default. Like it's like, if I just knew the right system, if I just knew how to organize my time, if I just knew how to use my calendar, if I just knew how to time box my week, then everything is going to be fine. And I don't know, it's like, what is so seductive about that?
It's simple.
It's simple.
It's you can point to one thing and say, oh, I just need to know how to organize better. I just need to know how to manage my time more effectively and box this little bit of time over here for this little thing and this little thing over here.
Yeah.
It's a simple story.
It's also, I would say it's unemotional.
Yes.
Like
it's very rational. It's very, very rational.
It's very rational. And, we just talked about, with Freud and Skinner, like we just spent 45 minutes talking about how defense mechanisms and resistance and rationalization and like all these excuses that you come up with and how uncomfortable it is. And
it's exhausting.
It is exhausting. Like emotions are fucking exhausting. Yeah. But there is something alleviating. There's something relieving about just being like, well, I just need to get the right calendar system, or if I get the right morning, like these days it's the morning routine, right? Mm-hmm. Because everybody's self-employed, so it's like I just need the right morning routine, and then my day is going to be great. I'm going to get so much done. I think here's a spicy take. I think 90% of the time, this is just another subtle form of procrastination.
100%, I agree with that. Yeah.
It is, let me study the techniques and systems that are going to make me more productive so I don't actually have to go be more productive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because being productive is actually uncomfortable and scary, and all these emotions start happening, and I don't want to deal with those. So let me study this calendar system and try to get it down.
Absolutely. And Exhibit A, look at how many productivity apps are out there. Those are all come from the time management kind of philosophy. They start there at least.
And correct me if I'm wrong, because you did more research on this section than I did, but like most of the research around this stuff is like there's not a whole lot of there.
Oh yeah, no. They tried to do some research, I think kind of in the 70s is when they're just like, we're not finding anything here.
Yeah.
I mean, and just anecdotally too, look at it. There's people who are highly organized, professionally, personally, whatever, they still procrastinate. Yeah. So it is not just about the system. And that's speaking from somebody who's tried every system there is out there. Maybe not everyone, but I've tried a lot of different systems.
Sure.
I have my little system. I do have a time management system. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
I think too, if you go from somebody who's never it's just been told what to do at all times, and then you just tell them, okay, now go do whatever you need to do without any structure. Yeah, they probably need some time management skills.
Right.
Absolutely. It is nowhere near the underlying cause of what causes people to not get things done. Though.
Yeah.
Some of the tenets of time management, setting clear priorities and goals. Well, sure. Okay.
Yeah.
People often, they underestimated how long tasks would take. So getting better at managing your time. Sure.
Shocking. Yeah.
You struggle to structure your day. And so you end up working on less important tasks over more important tasks. So prioritizing. Sure. All of these things, obviously you need to have those skills, but it's not getting at the root cause at all. But there are still, going to your point too, just recently, actually, I tried a new system, a new way of kind of capturing my to-do lists and organizing my time and even time boxing and stuff like that. And it was AI enabled. So of course I was really excited to try it. When I tried it, it was very disappointing because I'm like, oh, this is just the same shit I've already tried, just repackaged, and they put AI in front of the name of it.
Yeah.
And so I got on a forum and I asked them about a couple of things. I'm like, what about, X, Y, and Z? And somebody immediately jumped in and they're like, look, this community and the team for this app are just so dedicated and devoted. And they had this long response to my thing that had nothing to do with actually getting shit done. But that's where this leads though too. Yeah. You're right. The people, it's another form of procrastination. Like, I learned so much from this app. That was one of the lines I said. I've learned so much. I don't want to learn about an app. I just want to get shit done.
Right.
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 So I think that is the big risk with this. These apps and other systems and people who wrote books on this, they've made a lot of money and we still haven't found the time management solution.
Because they're feeding that seduction, that Plato seduction of like, if I just knew the right thing. I mean, this kind of dovetails into just the self-help industry in general. Yeah. I'm sure this is going to come up on a lot more episodes of like people thinking knowledge is the solution when it's really like it's an emotional problem. Right. I'm kind of spoiling the ending here, but like procrastination is an emotional problem. And sure, knowledge can like nudge you slightly in this direction or that. A framework, a time management framework, a certain system that you build for yourself can nudge you in this direction or that. Your environment nudges you in this direction or that. Ultimately, it's an emotional problem. I have a couple thoughts. One came up just while you were talking, which is I think people make a mistake. Like, yes, you are correct. Like, I think every productive person develops some sort of system for themselves. What people mistake is that system is not the cause of their productivity. It's the effect.
Yes.
Right? You learn what your personality is, what your proclivities are, what your emotional pitfalls are, the things that you get anxious about and that you worry about and that you stress about and the way you like to get things done and the sorts of things you like to do first thing in the morning versus last thing in the afternoon. And you build your own system around that to optimize for yourself. And eventually, once you spend enough time doing it, you get 10, 15 years into your work life, you've figured out pretty well what works for yourself and what doesn't. And that does make you very effective on a day-to-day basis. But then other people show up and they're like, oh, what system do you use? And they just assume that like if they just adopt your system that it's going to work perfectly for them. Yet, a lot of people have built multi-million-dollar businesses around that. So that's the first thought. The The second thought, I thought what you said, while you were describing knowledge work, you raised a really good point that I hadn't really thought about before, which is, in the kind of the industrial economy or agrarian economy, the measurement of the output is like predetermined, right? Like if you're a factory worker, you go in, your boss is like, hey, I need 50 of these widgets per day.
Mm-hmm. It's very tangible, yeah.
Super tangible, and it's very measurable, and you know what your progress is. So it's like, if you break for lunch and you only have 22 widgets done instead of 25, you're behind schedule. And so to like catch up in the afternoon. When you go into knowledge work, as you pointed out, a lot of it's creative, a lot of it's intangible, a lot of it is like involves negotiation. It involves like, discussing committees and meetings and dealing with clients and, taking somebody to the golf course and like all this stuff that is completely unmeasurable. What I know about human nature is that things that are not legible or measurable or are uncertain, they generate anxiety. And I imagine that there are lots of people in the knowledge work world. I know I experience this all the time in my own work. I'm sure you do too, where it's like you want to feel like you're making progress on something.
Yes.
You can like spend days or weeks on something. It is not necessarily clear to you that you've made any progress whatsoever. And so I've noticed it that on projects like that, I start measuring my time. It's like books are a perfect example because books like literally take 2 years to write. So there are whole stretches in the middle of a book where you actually don't know if you're making any progress or not. Like you're like, this entire chapter could end up deleted, right? Like everything I've worked on this month might be for nothing. So that doesn't feel good. So what do you start doing? You start measuring the hours you put in. You start measuring like, okay, I've done 11 days in a row of at least 3 hours a day, right? So it's like, I'm doing a good job. I'm a good author.
Right.
Are you? Like,
yeah. Well, it's the same thing with to-do lists too, right? Like I keep a to-do list and stuff. I love checking things off. And sometimes I'll keep the completed task list there so I can see it and it looks tangible and I'm making progress on something. But am I? I don't know. Or am I just checking boxes?
Yeah.
And it can get to that. Just that box checking can become its own little task of your own.
A conditioning, right?
Yeah. There are, a number of things. I mentioned a few of these that already came out of this era, or at least were inspired by this era that we still even use today. One of the kind of famous ones amongst the kind of productivity crowd anyway, like the Eisenhower Matrix, right? Yep. Well, Dwight Eisenhower was president after World War II. It was this time frame. It was very popular. So he had this quadrant, right?